Debashis and Kaushik specifically, you both kicked it off with saying, look, it has to start with the why and with a business, business value, rather than with the capabilities or the how or the actual technology solution. So, what do you think is the main reason that companies tend to, even on paper they're aware of that, they fall back into their habit and tell, look, let's focus on what we've got or what we can easily create, and then basically kind of run in this stream rather than actually looking at the big picture and the business value.
Okay. So let me take a shot at that first, and Debashis. So back to the Maruti Suzuki example, right, where the truckers will go, and for 7 days, 8 days, we have no visibility. We had IoT those days also. I'm talking about 92, 93. And we had a version of IoT where we would pay the truckers. So we realized that getting 8 days of no visibility is bad. So we would pay the truckers to stop at least 3 times in a day and make a phone call to the dealer center. And we'll pay them 10 rupees, which is the equivalent of 20 cents. So 20 cents is like a sensor today, right? But you see, we just had to, we invested in that sensor. We did not need to invest in the communications, the business application. So there was IoT, we used to get at least 3 days, at least thrice in a day where this person is. But that was not enough because the number of dealerships increased, number of models increased, the demand uncertainty is increased, and uncertainty about these truckers phoning us from the right place also increased, right? And that's when, the organization should think that, no, this, kind of semi-technology mode is not working. We need to get into a much more structured technology implementation.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that the companies need to think through is, what is the service, the additional, the enhanced service that I'm going to provide. It's not just selling a product. So in my opinion, the first thing they should be looking at is how do I change from a product-centric offering to a service-centric, and that's a mindset change. For example, a consumer product manufacturer, working with a retailer. Earlier it was like, how can I fulfill the demand and make sure that the product is available at their warehouse, even if I'm managing it in a VMI mode or a consignment mode. But now is, can I ensure on-shelf availability? Can I improve inventory velocity through a retail store? Can I support the multi-channel, omni-channel experience, model for the retailer? So we becoming partners and providing the service rather than just selling my Kit Kats or the biscuits. Okay, so that's the kind of I think change that has to come. So a mindset change is definitely required.
Lokesh, anything to add from your side, or otherwise I've got a next question for you.
Oh, next question.
Okay. If anyone has a question, please just others if you want.
Yeah.
In terms of the adoption of IoT around the digital, from your experience, who are the first movers? Currently, which are those kind of industries which are adopting more and more?
I might just put the microphone. I might repeat the question. So, from an IoT adoption perspective, what are the industries or the organizations as well that are the early adopters who really put it into practice?
Yeah, I'll take this question. See, Ecosystem did a survey, and we look into the IoT adoption into various industry segments. We identified manufacturing is one segment which has a huge potential at this moment of time. So at this moment of time, if you look into, a lot of people in manufacturing industry are talking about IoT and adoption of robotics as well for automating some of the tasks. That is one industry which is happening. The second industry which is happening is into the maintenance side. A lot of IoT is being positioned for predictive maintenance area, especially where a lot of sensor data will go into the software, and software will start recommending the predictive maintenance schedule or all those things. This equipment is going to fail. Earlier it was difficult to do it because of various aspects, because there are so much of variables into machinery which are difficult to monitor by a human mind. So now with the sensors, the job of a human is enhanced by getting this recommendation. It doesn't mean recommendation will be right, but he has something to act on and apply his human intelligence to take decisions.
Sorry. Yeah.
Can I just add on one thing? So if I look at the which industry adopted. I think first industries which came on board was who were working on the customers closely, and the technology savvy industries, banking, telecom, they were probably the first ones to get into in a B2C mode. Then came the retails and the FMCG, who are very, very consumer focused. So in terms of higher adoption of IoT, more on the customer side first, but then good thing is as the customer side is maturing, people are now getting into the more back-end supply chain side of things, and things are moving on the B2B side also.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of trend I see. Yeah. Sorry, Sam.
Actually, thank you for a fantastic presentation, Debashis and Lokesh and Kaushik. You give us a lot of examples of Amazon or the automotive industry. Do you have any data on the actual money being invested in some of these success companies and the returns? Like a before, what was the situation and what is the after? Because I feel implementing all this is a huge amount of cost, people, etc. Is it worth it? He's talking of trucks and we want to know where all the trucks are. I think having a few dollars of cents might give me the solution. Why do I need to know everything real time and all that? And what is the impact? Is there any data on that? And like before we spend this much and this much of capacity utilization or this much of profitability increase. No, just from a investment perspective. I invest in that company which is done.
Kaushik?
No, I just want to thank you for articulating my value proposition so nicely. This is exactly what I'm saying.
I need some data.
Yeah.
Exactly like Amazon or whatever.
Yeah. I'll give you an example. Sometimes the benefit is quite intangible in nature. Yesterday, I was walking on ECP side and a cleaner was cleaning the beach. He was taking a photograph and putting a photograph in the system. Then immediately I think, okay, this infrastructure IoT, what impact does it have? It has an impact, it must be going into some system or maybe manually supervisor is looking into it, but ideally it should be going into some system and system should be intelligent enough to do, analytics on this photo, whether cleaning is done or not. Now, how should I monetize this output? Output is better service. Okay, output is achieving the goals for which you are paying to the person. So this output many times in 50 to 60% of IoT projects, you will find this sort of challenge. So how do I value it? So it means you have to put certain assumption parameter that if my cost of cleaning a stretch of a beach is, for example, $100 or $200, if poor cleaning is done, the cost is $50. Okay, so it means I'm getting extra cleaning of $50 extra worth. How much is my worth of this? And that's why when you do a real IoT implementation project, at every stage of the project, whether it's an ideation, it's a proof of concept, even till production, your thinking will start changing. You have to keep on looking into this monetization aspect, the change management aspect, that how has something changed. In a typical ERP or CRM sort of implementation, we always think my requirements are fixed, let's go ahead. But here, requirements are not fixed. Monetization also changes because next time you will say not $50, I will give it a worth of $90. So a lot of things changes.
Actually, I just want to add on to what Lokesh said. In most cases, the outcomes are not directly linked to what you invested in. Okay, for example, let's say you have a better inventory management. Okay, you can tangibly see that inventory, let's say optimization project, it will reduce the inventory by 10 to 15%. Easily, if you do it well, and there are cases where we have seen inventory reduction by 10 to 15%. But how much of that inventory optimization is affecting your service delivery, right? How by better managing inventory, you probably are servicing your customer better, and that's impacting your being shown up as your default increasing or some perfect order metric increasing, right? But how do you quantify that? That's a challenge, of course, because it's not just the IoT cost, it's basically the process that is driving this. IoT is one of the elements. So that is where it makes it difficult. That I needed process innovation, right? How do I quantify that? IoT cost I bought from a supplier, I know how is the cost. But to manage the change, to redesign a process, to reorchestrate a process, there is a cost to it. How do you kind of quantify that? So, but ultimately, I think what Kaushik said, that model, the tree diagram is the ultimate test. Some of it will come from IoT, some of it will come from process innovation, right? But it's very difficult to say, okay, IoT is this much in ROI, that's difficult.
Do you have any kind of data which...
Yeah, so I can maybe answer that.
Yeah,
So we do have a lot of data on how much money goes into IoT as a proportion of turnover or technology budget or something. We do have ratings how successful IoT projects have been valued, but not necessarily in a quantitative, like did it give a 2x, 3x, 4x return. That's hard because it's something that's intangible. The other thing is, and that's not just IoT related, but generally for technology or any projects, I think there's a poor discipline in a lot of companies on benefit realization analysis. So once a project is implemented, there's very few companies who really track it through and has the business case that we developed upfront actually eventuated, how are we tracking against it. So that's why we do have some data points with regards to investments and success rates and everything, but not so much on quantifying the return on investment.
And really just, one about what Kaushik said, it's a classic disconnect between business and technology.
Yeah.
IoT projects are still funded by technology, whereas the benefits are realized by the business. So that's where, quantifying that is becoming difficult.
So we had one question first, I think,
Yeah,
then we'll come Nick to you.
Hi, good morning. First of all, thanks for a very insightful morning. I think every single session was well structured, kind of followed the pattern. This question's for Dr. Kaushik. You spoke about the ROIC model in particular, right? And I think just you alluded to the disconnect between business and technology. And I think in the survey, we saw the strategy was the core of that disconnect. That came as a surprise to me because I think strategy should be front and center, and it's baffling because we are having conversations with a lot of people, especially the chief strategy officers, especially around the larger transformation. What advice do you have for organizations like IBM and others that are trying to structure conversations that are around the larger strategy, larger picture on transformation, but perhaps we're still kind of gravitating towards the IT function, and we're talking to strategy guys, but what should we change in our narrative to kind of hit the mark?
Yeah, right. So a whiteboard would have been good, but let me kind of give you a picture. The way I think of this, and I feel the disconnect very strongly also. There are three dimensions that needs to come together. One is your product. You need to have really good technology. That's table stake, right? You need to have a good sales process and sales skills. But with these two are not sufficient unless you are getting the customer dimension right. So for my advice for IBM or any other technology company trying to make an impact in this area is the customer dimension has to come in first in terms of the thinking of why should this customer need any kind of technology at this point of time? What is the business case for this customer? And drive that discussion with the prospects and the customers. Otherwise, again, we are kind of putting the cart before the horse. Yeah. Anything?
Exactly. I mean, you need to find a business model that creates customer value.
Yeah.
That's exactly what resonates here. I mean, and my definition of digital business is exactly that. To create a service-focused organization that creates customer value. And that is where the investment will go in. Now it's more talk about cost, talk about efficiency, talk about visibility, but very few people are talking about what value we are creating for the customer.
Yeah.
I have only one thing to add. See, big companies, IBM sort of companies, huge companies with huge number of sales force. So many a time what happens when what I have seen in industry, people come with a software pitch to the customer, but customer is looking to see the pitch of his business and software as the last piece. So in his pitch, many a time customer is also not fully knowledgeable. So he need domain expertise, he need domain guidance, and then the software piece come.
I mean, let's say you're you're going to a FMCG company or a consumer products company who is working with retailer, the example I gave you. So the discussion should be, can I help you create better relations with your retailers, like improve inventory velocity? There are a lot of implementations where the consumer products manufacturers are investing seriously into advising their retail channels how to improve inventory velocity through the channel. And they are proactively suggesting them, these are the things that you should be doing in order to increase the inventory velocity. So that's the kind of value you are providing to your customer, or your customers are providing to their customers, and you should be driving that. Plant that seed in the customer's mind that, hey, look, there are opportunities to help your customers so that, and we can help you. We can help you with that.
Can we just, Nick, you're the...
Yeah, so my question was, you've set out the model of the what and the why, and mine's more about the how. So I decided to do this. How do I procure it? What's the process I go through? Do I go to a single provider and do some kind of agile development? Do I do a turnkey solution? How do you see that happening? What's the best way to approach that?
I have, but
Yeah.
So again, if you look at any slide that talks about IoT providers, one goes bonkers, right? There are so many different people trying to do so many different things. So how do you bring structure into that thinking process? And the way, I have seen it work well is, again, get your initial piece right in terms of why are we doing this? What exactly are the components that I need? What are the business capabilities I need? And get a reasonable idea. It's difficult to get a very detailed level of requirements at that stage, but get a reasonable framework in place in terms of what business areas and what process capabilities am I trying to drive. And then look at companies as to which could be the best fits, who can take me through this journey.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, the 3-stage model that I suggested, that look at the business model, that will drive your supply chain operating model. And that will drive your sensors and all the IoT strategy, right? So let's say you are trying to provide a service that you need to, that needs sensors out in the field. And the temperature and the rain and all those, weatherproofness and all those things needs to be considered. So once you have designed that process, what kind of processes you're trying to enable, which will need what kind of sensors, then that will automatically shortlist the universe. I mean, the short in the length. The range of products that you will need. But now comes, okay, what should you do? I mean, whom should you work with, right? Product is okay. I mean, you only have so many vendors. But do you work with do you develop internally? Do you basically outsource it to someone? But I think that the answer will come from that second middle piece, that what supply chain operating model you are trying to implement. If that's available in an off-the-shelf product, you just plug that in. If that needs to be developed, then of course you have to develop. So I think there's no right or wrong answer at the moment.
There are a few things which is there. If the organization is big, first IoT project is one project, right? But they want to implement many projects, integrate it together. So it means you need a core team internally for sure. In the first project will take a bit of time and hassles and learning. After this first project implementation, you will have a lot of learning out of it. Unfortunately, in the IoT implementation, there are a lot of pieces of technology being integrated. It starts with the sensors. These sensors need to talk to operation technology like Honeywell, Siemens, Schneider sort of technology. Then comes your networking technology, then your fog computing, then it goes to your level of complete to the cloud computing, your machine learning, your AI. So the stack of technology into an IoT project is pretty big. So probably, or I would say most likely, in the first implementation, you will find challenges of dealing with multiple solution providers. But the suggestion is, you should have a core team internally. I mean, and that core team not only need to look into the technology aspect, they need to look into a lot into the change management aspect, how people will react to it, how people will buy in, because the first project will be closely monitored by senior management as well. Okay, once the few success come, then you are ready to become, rolling it out. So this team is very important to factor into.
And just adding one more point to this, that there are many elements, right? The sensor is one, but there is a whole application stack, including the AI, machine learning, potentially, right? If it's basic analytics, probably your internal team can handle. But if it goes to AI and advanced analytics and machine learning, probably your team is not ready yet. In that case, leverage external. So depends on what capability you are trying to develop. If that AI is important for you, okay, or machine learning and developing those advanced analytical algorithms is important for you and don't have capability, there is no choice. But please, one of the mistakes that companies do is they don't realize the importance of certain components. They focus on the areas they are strong with, and then kind of undermine the the importance of the others. But the first thing is to understand which piece is important. Sensor is a sensor. You can have like multiple vendors, right? Some are good, some are not so good. But is that the most important thing, or this analytics bit is more important? So depend on that, and then you decide whether you have that capability or not. Sometimes you may work with a company for the first time and then kind of bring that knowledge in. That I have seen that technology and knowledge transfer happening, but first project is outsourced.
I'm just conscious of timing because we've already run a little bit over, and I know you all have a busy schedule as well. So we're not being kicked out of this room immediately. So why don't we finish the official session? But then we can continue obviously in one-on-one discussion, or if you've got any other question that you might want to address. So I would like to first of all thank you all for your time this morning. I would like to thank Debashis, Lokesh, and Kaushik for their presentation and also for answering these questions. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to check out, we sent you obviously a follow-up email with the slides. Our new research platform is going to go live later today, so please check it out. Otherwise, we will obviously notify you for future sessions of this style. Probably not this year, but early next year we're kicking off with the 2019 series. So thank you very much for coming, and look forward to continuing the discussion soon. Thank you.
Thank you.